This weak-faced young man is actually a master in disguise. By day, he plays the part of a pathetic healer while his teammates charge forward, swinging their swords. He convincingly plays the role of a walking health pack, waiting to see who's in need before dragging himself over to heal them. And naturally, Leorium is always looked down on by his friends. But what no one knows is that besides this pathetic account, he's secretly been leveling up an alt and Avenger class that's 100 times more powerful than his main. After waiting for his buddies to pack up and leave, Leorium finally logs into his alt. In his VIP Pro Max form, he quickly finds a party of players. The scene of the Heil dungeon was the same old story. Nobody there could fight properly. A few guys were double killed before they even managed to draw their swords. They bit the dust before they could even say their last words. Just when the battle was at a complete stalemate, Leorium jumped in with his main character, Aura, obliterating the boss in a single slash, much to everyone's utter confusion. As usual, he tried to dodge all the praise and party invitations, quickly grabbing the loot and getting ready to dip. But this time, something was different. The system screen displayed an ominous-sounding notification. Are you sure you want to log out? You won't regret your decision, will you? As he confirmed, Leorium thought to himself, weird, is this billion-dollar server bugging out now? Unexpectedly, after returning to reality, just as he set down his VR headset, he felt the space around him suddenly change. Even his own body began to look strange like a robot with its circuitry exposed. Scared out of his wits, the guy bolted. He dashed in front of the mirror, only to be stunned by his own reflection. This face, this body, it's clearly my Avenger character from the game. Before he could even process it, the system suddenly teleported him to a rooftop. Leorium was still trying to understand what was happening when an even bigger surprise appeared behind him. A monster with one glaring red eye. A boss from the game had somehow chased him here. Seeing it rush towards him, Leorium couldn't dodge in time and was knocked right off the rooftop. But despite falling from 5 stories up, he was completely unharmed. As he collected himself, he noticed a few pedestrians nearby murmuring amongst themselves. It was then that he realized this was reality, not some game-induced delusion. His train of thought was cut short as the one-eyed monster came after him again. Leorium panicked and tried to warn the people around him, but strangely, even though he screamed his lungs out, nobody responded. Looking at their expressions, Leorium suddenly realized that this was the real world, but no one could see him or the monster. This was a total mind-bender. It's like letting a rabid dog loose in a pen of cows. Leorium was bewildered. He thought this invisible battle had nothing to do with the civilians. But just a few seconds later, the monster went on a rampage. With a roar, the ground suddenly cracked and collapsed into a fiery pit. A young man, casually waiting for a bus, became the first unwilling victim. His girlfriend and other bystanders screamed in horror, creating a scene of absolute chaos. Watching this, Leorium broke out in a cold sweat, his blood boiling. At that moment, an idea flashed in his mind. He had to lure the monster away so it wouldn't harm any more innocent people. Seeing Leorium take off running, the monster gleefully chased after him. Before long, it had him cornered in a dead end. Just as Leorium thought this was where he would die, he suddenly remembered the bizarre changes to his body. It seemed that for some reason the real world had connected to the game's dungeons and the monsters were trying to expand their reach. Perhaps that's why players like him had transformed into the avatars they used for grinding. Realizing this, Leorium tried using one of his in-game skills. It worked. A wicked grin spread across his face. He instantly flipped into combat mode. With just a few basic moves, he quickly defeated the one-eyed monster. It's a long story, but it happened in a flash. In short, fighting monsters in real life is both thrilling and exhausting. But the upside is just like in the game. You get rewards. At least it was worth the effort. The next morning, news of the previous night's explosion was trending everywhere. Leorium casually toasted some bread in the kitchen, listening to the report. He was certain now that the world and that VR game were glitching out somehow. Just then, the front door swung open and a woman's voice called out, "I'm home." His older sister hurriedly kicked off her shoes and stepped inside. She looked up to say something, but when she saw the man standing in the kitchen, her tone changed instantly. "Excuse me, but who are you?" Leorium wasn't too surprised by her reaction. He tried to explain that he was indeed her little brother. After hearing him out, his sister stood frozen for a second, then calmly pulled a taser from her bag with a menacing look. "Cut the crap. I know my own brother, and he's supposed to look like a scrawny addict, not some buff dude like you." Leorium didn't know whether to laugh or cry, never realizing his sister had such a pathetic image of him. Seeing her lunge forward, about to jam the taser into his head, he quickly leaped backward. "Whoa, wait. You like carrots and pill leaves, right? And you grind your teeth in your sleep. And whenever you go on a bad blind date, you come home, get drunk, and complain for hours. I really am your brother, Leorium. Hearing the man in front of her list off her personal secrets, his sister's face went pale. But then she just clicked her tongue, thinking this creep must have done some serious research. It wasn't until she heard the story of her parents' death from the person in front of her that she truly came to her senses and against her had to believe the young man was her little brother, Leorium, because that was a secret only the two of them knew. The older sister quickly put down the stun gun and walked towards her brother, asking anxiously as she looked at the crisscrossing wounds all over his body. She was about to pull out her phone to call a cab to the hospital, but was stopped by Leorium. What kind of doctor would believe that playing a game for over 180 minutes could make you transform into your in-game character? Trying to explain it all would be more trouble than it's worth, so it was better to just keep quiet. Of course, teachers and friends would also be a big problem. But seeing Leorium's resolute attitude, his sister, with a pained look on her face, reluctantly nodded. To help this version of Leorium quickly integrate into society, the next step would be to go to school and explain things to the teachers. His sister ordered Leorium to get a move on, but the young man just stood there goofing off, thinking his sister was overreacting. He was sure he could handle everything by himself. Hey, Leorium. Yeah, are you going to shut your mouth and come with me? Or do you want to jolt to your family jewels? Seeing his sister's eyebrows furrowed so much they nearly touched, a shiver went down Leorium's spine. He quickly said yes and immediately skewered after her. Down on the street, some bored people had already started to gather at yesterday's scene to livestream. This brown-haired girl stood on the sidewalk watching them. While checking her news feed, she muttered to herself, wondering if she should go check out the gossip. Her name is Kim Soo. She dresses simply, but has an extraordinary air about her. She's also a student at the school Leorium attends. The school hallway was quite empty at this time. Despite her friend chattering away in her ear, Kim Soo glanced over and saw the two Lai siblings from a distance, looking at the young man before them, who looked like a masterpiece of design. Both girls' eyes went wide. Kim Soo, in particular, felt a strange sense of confusion, as if she had met this young man before. Meanwhile, the Lai siblings had arrived at the faculty office. Although his sister kept reassuring him that it would be fine, he couldn't help but wonder what he was supposed to say once he got inside. If he said he just woke up from a nap and suddenly got eye sky, who would believe him? Wouldn't they just drag him off to be a test subject? At that thought, Leorium hesitated for a moment, suddenly wanting to back out. He quickly used the excuse of needing the restroom. He pulled out the mysterious box he had looted from last night's battle from his pocket. Then he calmly used it to activate a skill. He heard a notification in his ear. Charming eyes. Brainwashing skill activated. Better to be lucky than good. Lucky. Just hearing the name of the skill made it sound totally legit. And it came at the perfect time for persuading people. It was absolutely top-notch. Just as Leorium predicted at first, the homeroom teacher was extremely suspicious of his appearance, having changed so much to the point of being unrecognizable. Even with his sister, a nurse, vouching for him and explaining everything, the teacher just scratched his head, refusing to understand. Left with no other choice, our protagonist played his final card. However, he didn't use it directly on the homeroom teacher, but decided to brainwash the vice principal, who was standing not far away holding a cup of coffee. Leorium thought to himself that if he could successfully turn the vice principal into an ally, it would be like killing 10 birds with one stone. And sure enough, with just a few blinks, the vice principal's eyes sparkled with little hearts, and his whole body jolted as if he'd been shocked. He unconsciously walked right over and slapped the homeroom teacher's shoulder so hard it nearly popped out of its socket. He began to plead with all his might. Why don't we just trust Leorium? For once, handsome or not, he's still a student. Is appearance really that important? Is appearance really that important? The homeroom teacher, after getting an earful, just nodded his head vigorously like a chicken pecking at grain. The whole group stood there listening to the lecture, while Leorium silently cursed himself that he might have overdone the dose on the teacher. The vice principal loudly explained that in an age where dogs can fly to the moon, what's a little change in appearance? With that, he aggressively dragged the whole group to Leorium's classroom. He intended to personally enlighten everyone so they wouldn't discriminate against the boy. Standing before dozens of bewildered faces, the vice principal delivered a monologue while shedding tears. It left every single student stunned. No one dared to say a word against him. It was a bit of a clumsy move, but for now, the problem seemed to be solved. Leorium habitually walked to his seat. Faced with a barrage of questions from his friends, the boy just gave vague answers. I don't know anything. Maybe it's some kind of weird syndrome. But the group was still very curious and didn't seem willing to let it go. On the outside, Leorium looked helpless, but on the inside, he was cursing. I knew it. Who the hell would believe the way the vice principal was talking? It wasn't until a female student sitting next to him spoke up, saying she had heard of a syndrome like that our protagonist managed to dodge a bullet. It turns out Kim Soo is in the same class as our protagonist, Lee Leorium. Unable to bear seeing him in such a difficult situation, she jumped in to save him. Kim Soo is not only beautiful and the daughter of pharmaceutical company CEO, but also incredibly calm and composed. Every word she says carries a lot of weight. Leorium shyly turned to thank her and even let her borrow his headphones, increasing his favorability by tenfold. Everything seemed to be going smoothly, except the class bullies didn't think so. Leorium glanced over at their leader, Anyang, who was sitting not far away, only to see him glance back with a meaningful smile. Just when he thought he was in a new position now, that he was truly different from yesterday and would surely be treated like a normal student, he ran into Hyong and LT, Unk and GT, S gang at the end of the school day. Despite his complete transformation, when faced with the three bullies, Leorium still found himself trembling uncontrollably, unable to move a muscle. Seeing him like this only made them more pissed off. Leorium, did you inject some muscle enhancers or something? But let's see. A little extra fat on your body won't make my hands hurt anymore. With that, he lunged forward using a dirty move to immediately lock Leorium in a headlock. The insult, "You piece of trash," echoed in Leorium's ear. Orium gritted his teeth so hard he could barely breathe. And to think just a few minutes ago, class was about to end. He was still feeling hyped about his new body, and the two girls at the next desk had even invited him to go hang out and de-stress. But a text from that bunch shattered everything. Did they really call me all the way out here just to pull this stupid crap? The more Leorium thought about it, the angrier he got. He was angry at them, sure, but 10 times angrier at himself. It was like seeing his old self standing to the side, staring at him with eyes full of resentment. Aren't you weak just because you refuse to fight back? It's not like you're some helpless kitten anymore. So why are you scared of these pests? Leorium was getting an earful from his other personality, completely caught off guard. Just then, a skill suddenly activated and fueled by a surge of anger. He violently threw off the bully who was pinning him down, much to the stunned surprise of the other two. Caught off guard by the resistance, the bully Han got absolutely furious. He scrambled to his feet, screaming the foulest curses he knew. Orium, snapping back to reality, found his hands and feet trembling. He couldn't believe he'd actually pulled something like that off. But true to his nature of hating trouble and wanting to avoid any more conflict, his first instinct was to turn and run. At that very moment, Kim Soo and her best friend were standing at a corner waiting for the light to change. Sue was fiddling with the earbud that Orium had lent her, lost in her own thoughts. Unexpectedly, she glanced up and saw a figure across the street running for his life. Leorium. Without looking back, he darted into a deserted alley, feeling as if a giant mouth was right behind him, ready to swallow him whole. Turns out the bullies had caught up. Before he could even get a word out, he had a kick from Seung-hoon right to the face. The bully scanned his prey from head to toe, cracked his knuckles, and then lunged in for the beatdown. Orium lay pathetically on the ground, his body writhing with every blow he took. Crushing thoughts of failure and self-blame threatened to swallow him whole. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from behind the group of bullies, and they all froze for 5 seconds, staring in that direction. Kim Soo shot the whole group a look of pity mixed with indifference. She stepped forward and said, "So noisy. You're giving me a headache. I'm actually short of shopping partner, and I was planning on hanging out with the guy on the ground there, so let him go. All right, and it's best if you don't meddle in my affairs. I do what I want." Leorium looked at the girl in front of him who was radiating total girl crush energy and was completely in awe of the bullies. The other bullies, knowing she was the richest kid in school, got a little spooked. Only Exon Hwan, stubborn as ever, gritted his teeth and cursed right in Kim Soo and LT, Unk and GT's face. "You think you can act all tough just because you're rich? You want to get beaten to a pulp like that loser over there?" Kim Soo looked at him with utter disgust. "Excuse me, but could you please take 5 steps back?" Before the bully could even process what she meant, Sue fanned the flames. "It's because you weak of garbage. It's making me nauseous." Needless to say, the bully was absolutely livid. His face twisted with rage, veins popping on his forehead as he lunged forward to slap the girl. Seeing this, our hero, Leorium, heard that other personality of his egging him on. "Do something, you idiot. You're not a walking punching bag anymore." Hit with that critical blow to his pride, Leorium's anger flared. He clenched his fists and let out a yell. Then, moving at the speed of light, he rushed forward and landed a punch that would have shattered the bully's face ID. Before the guy even knew what hit him, he went flying several feet back. Seong Hwan struggled to his feet and spat a mouthful of red syrup on the ground. So it's come to this. He swore he wouldn't let Leorium leave in one piece. Tossing off his jacket, he charged forward again, unleashing a flurry of punches while the onlookers thought our hero was just all talk. "Yay! but he had already activated his absorption skill. Every punch Hun threw Orium took head-on, absorbed its power, and sent back a counterpunch that was even more devastating. This time, the tables had truly turned. It was the bully's turn to eat a combo of hits. Still not satisfied, Leorium intentionally lowered his own health bar so he could unleash an even more relentless barrage of attacks. And for the finishing touch, he didn't forget to add a swift kick across the face, giving him back that same gut-wrenching feeling from before. He looked down at the bully sprawled on the ground with his eyes rolled back, completely unconscious, radiating a murderous aura. Leorium hauled him up, ready to finish it with one final punch. "Hey, get up and run your mouth. Why so quiet now?" The onlooker stared at the hateful glare in Orium's eyes and backed away in fear. Afraid he'd go too far, his diamond friend immediately stepped in. "That's enough, Orium. It's over. Let's go." Looking down at his victim gasping on the ground, his rage finally began to cool. The two of them prepared to leave the battlefield. But unexpectedly, another idiot charged from behind, wielding a weapon. "You bastard. You dare hit my bro, stand still. I'm gonna mess you up." Leorium reflexively leaped in front of Kim to shield her, but before he could even make a move, the approaching bully suddenly seized up as if he'd been electrocuted. He crashed face first onto the pavement, but in the air, Leorium was just as confused. He clearly hadn't touched him. He had no idea that behind him his seemingly harmless female classmate had, with a single glance, made the bully bite the dust just as he'd threatened. The two of them left that place and moved to a better lit street corner. Sei helped Orium bandage his wounds, even taking a moment to snap a picture of his battered face with her phone as a souvenir. Staring at the beautiful girl beside him, our hero was completely flustered, scratching his head as he mumbled his thanks. But Sue coldly brushed it off. "Consider it payment for letting me borrow your earbud. Anyway, it's getting late. I should get going. There's something I need to talk to you about tomorrow, but it's kind of a long story, so have lunch with me." "Okay." Hearing this, our teenage hero's face turned beet red. It was his first time ever being asked out by a girl, and he felt incredibly awkward. As he watched Kim Sue's silhouette disappear into the distance, his mind exploded with a million questions. What could she possibly need to talk about in private? Don't tell me she's interested in my body. Maybe it's because my family has a long history in pharmacy, the young man thought with a chuckle, then jumped as a notification screen suddenly appeared. "A subjugation quest will begin in the next 5 minutes. Agree to participate." Leorium carefully read every word. Thinking of that IAT monster from yesterday, he shuddered and immediately pressed no. Why would I be crazy enough to rush head first into danger again? To his surprise, the damn system displayed another message. "You have accumulated too many demerits. Therefore, this quest cannot be skipped." Huh? Are you kidding me? Orium almost cursed it out loud. The system giving him a choice seemed like a nice gesture, but it was just a cruel joke. Checking again, he realized he'd been silently docked points during the exam. When he adjusted the skill on the vice principal, and when he used it to beat up those thugs earlier, Leorium couldn't believe it. Everything was happening too fast. He wanted to protest, but when he opened his eyes again, he found himself falling straight into a shin-depth creek. Damn it. If you're going to teleport someone, at least give a warning. Couldn't you have picked a more decent spot? Thinking of the phone in his pocket and the books in his backpack, Orium scrambled to his feet. Suddenly, he noticed a door nearby. Strange. It's just floating in midair. What is this? Is this the monster I'm supposed to defeat? Orium cautiously approached, observing his surroundings. The system popped up with another reminder. Only 10 seconds remaining until the quest begins. Just as our hero was trying to process everything from the other side of the door, a giant, distorted face suddenly appeared. It was followed by a massive body that passed right through, heading towards him. According to the information he received, this monster was called the Cursed Cavalier Aubin. But hearing that made Orium even more terrified. What the hell? I've never even encountered this thing in the game. How am I supposed to fight it? The monster's attack speed was several times faster than the one from yesterday. For a moment, Orium had no idea what to do. He had no choice but to use a skill to defend himself. For the next 10 seconds, his mind raced, constantly analyzing. I don't know what kind of monster this is, but it uses a sword. Plus, it's a humanoid monster. I should be able to predict its next move based on that. Realizing this, Leorium felt a surge of hope. This might not be so tough after all, he told himself. He immediately leaped to dodge its attacks, landing a few convenient slashes on its back. But just as he prepared to strike again, he found his entire body had gone stiff. He couldn't move. He couldn't even swing the sword in his hand. Looks like I've been hit with some kind of sensory paralysis. A chill ran down Leorium's spine. Seeing the monster raise its great sword to cut him down, he desperately used every ounce of his strength to parry the blow and escape. But trying to cast another skill sent a sharp pain through his head. A bright, red, menacing notification popped up, Skill cast failed. He had never imagined a situation like this. His reflexes were slowing, and his body felt like it was weighed down with lead. With his skills locked, he was a sitting duck. Don't tell me this monster is so overpowered because it can paralyze its opponents. Am I really this unlucky? Leorium, calm down and think. Use your head. He lowered his head, trying to calm himself down. Okay, this monster seems way more overpowered than the one yesterday, but it doesn't seem to rely on speed. If it's this slow, dodging should be easy. The problem is I need to use a combination of skills to finish it. In that case, I'll just have to kite it like I do in games. That strategy is exhausting and takes forever, but staying alive is the priority. Wait a minute. This isn't some superhero show where the monster waits for the hero to power up before attacking. While Orium was lost in thought, the monster beside him was already getting impatient to fight. It lifted the great sword in its hand and swung down. A brilliant aura radiated from the blade. By the time Orium realized what was happening, he found he was temporarily blind. It was an attack meant to obscure his vision. Using that opportunity, the monster instantly closed the distance and threw a punch. Orium was sent flying completely helpless. Damn it, this is so unfair. If only I had a healer here right now. As his head slammed against a rock, Leorium suddenly had a brilliant idea. He immediately called on the system, demanding it open the 2 mysterious boxes he had left from yesterday's rewards. Damn it, I don't even need anything amazing. Please, just give me something useful. As soon as the words left his mouth, the 2 boxes opened. One contained a golden tree branch used for summoning crows or for decoration. The other one was even more of a joke. Diamond tears. It sounded impressive, but in reality, it was nothing more than a bath bomb. What's this supposed to mean? That I should take a bath in the creek down here, dry off, and wait for it to come eat me? Leorium was furious, feeling like he'd been set up. He knew he had to run if he wanted to live, but the moment he turned his back, he took a direct hit from that terrifying greatsword. His body crashed to the ground like a falling fruit. Orium staggered back to his feet. At this point, he no longer cared about keeping up appearances or being a nice guy. What is this useless junk? Random or not, this is just too cruel. Am I really going to die here? Suddenly, an idea sparked in his brain again. Leorium cursed himself. Idiot. Why don't I just try using those 2 things? Well, I gotta lose. As soon as he thought it, he did it. Orium called the system, using the golden branch to summon a flock of crows while simultaneously opening the battle preparation screen. As predicted less than 3 seconds later, a flock of crows swarmed in, cawing like a chaotic marketplace. The cavalier monster was momentarily stunned. It swung its great sword around wildly to drive them off, but it was completely useless. Meanwhile, Leorium stood quietly in a corner and exchanged the bath bomb for a paralysis potion, preparing to give the monster a taste of its own medicine. Spotting Orium, the monster angrily charged straight for the murder of crows. But as it swung its sword down, the blade got stuck and its body grew heavy as if caught in a flash. Orium appeared behind it and whispered mockingly in its ear. I've stacked up enough of physical damage now. Time to pay you back. As he said that, before the monster could even react, Orion's face hardened with immense, killing intent as a barrage of blades rained down from the sky like a storm. Pierced by 1,000 arrows, the monster died before it could even gasp. And that's that, Leorium thought to himself. I'd rather play 10 video games than grind like this in real life. He panted, summoning the system to claim his reward. He had decided not to choose the mystery box this time, but a blood-red notification appeared before him, warning that another player had illegally entered the area. A chill ran down Orion's spine as he read it. Could it be that besides him, someone else had been dragged into this Gotham system's endless loop? Suddenly getting a bad feeling, Orion spun around just in time to see a masked figure lunging at him with a scythe. He threw up his hands to cast a defensive spell. He managed to avoid a fatal blow, but the masked man was clearly still malicious. Orion quickly drew his own sword, and their powerful clash sent them both flying backward. He carefully observed the masked figure. It was a person, not a monster. But their attacks were absolutely ruthless. If he hadn't turned around in time, his head would probably be off his shoulders by now. Again, that's right. The skill he's using now. He must have the Avenger class. Just as Orion reached this conclusion, he saw the man charging at him again. Unable to take it anymore, he yelled in frustration. What the hell do you think you're doing? Why are you attacking me? In response, he only received a chilling glare and a voice that sounded like a call from hell. I don't know. I've never thought I needed a reason to go hunting in a game, pal. Oh, this guy's one of those. He was truly insane, and his attacks were just as dangerous. Orion cried out in pain as the scythe sliced cleanly into his shoulder. But the man's attacks were simply too fast. Just when he was at a loss, a barrier suddenly materialized around them. To his surprise, the one who had arrived was his classmate, Kim Si. Both Orion and the masked man were completely stunned. This small, pretty girl actually possessed an O-rank defensive support skill from the Labyrinth Masterclass. Kim Si-will slowly descended, glanced at Orion, and then said casually, "This time I'm not helping you because of the headphones. You have to treat me to lunch tomorrow. And remember to buy the most delicious thing in the world, too. Strawberry milk." With Kim Si's help, the tables had almost turned. The masked man no longer had the upper hand. He still grabbed his scythe and charged forward aggressively, but he was stopped in his tracks by Swell's beast trap. Orion, standing to the side, felt like the whole world was spinning. Watching Swell in action, he could only utter a few words. Absolutely freaking amazing. But it wasn't over. Kim Selwell suddenly shouted for Orion to dodge. The masked man had escaped the trap. He was now diving from above at an incredible speed. He aimed straight for Orion and mumbled, "Skill blacklist, final entry." Orion couldn't dodge in time, but after taking the hit, he didn't feel anything different about his body. Just then, Swell shouted urgently, "Hurry and open the system. Finish the reward selection from before. Because another player invaded time has stopped. That's the only way to end this round." Orion, completely surprised, could only nod furiously and do as she said. Seeing this, the masked man wanted to charge forward and stop him, but he didn't realize that his current position was still within Kim Swell's control. Only then did he remember from the moment she joined the fight. The first skill she used was this invisible labyrinth trap. The masked man let out a helpless laugh as he watched Orion make his selection and end the round. The game round was over, but his murderous aura hadn't diminished in the slightest. He glared at them both with hostility, pulling down his mask to reveal an unfamiliar face. In a flat tone, he said, "How pathetic. Next time, I'll be the one to finish you both off, because I've memorized both of your faces." Following a long beep from the system, Leorium was teleported back to the street corner right before the incident happened. His phone rang again. Seeing the caller was Kim Sewell, he immediately answered, wanting to demand what on earth was going on. Unexpectedly, Sewell got straight to the point, advising him to go home immediately. "You've been targeted by them. That blacklist skill is used to track your location. It's not perfectly accurate, but don't wander around outside anymore. It's too dangerous." Still confused, Orion asked, "Who exactly are they?" Kimwell explained briefly, "They're players, but they're peers. In other words, instead of doing quests like us, they hunt and collect rewards by getting other players killed." Hearing this, Orion finally understood why the masked man had been so malicious. Thinking about how Kim Sil had also taken a hit while helping him, he asked if she was okay. But unexpectedly, Kim Sywell thought he was asking to form a party with her, and then she told him to text her his address. "We and LT, Unk and GT, LL sleep at the same place tonight to prevent anything." From the moment he heard that, our clueless Orion's face turned beet red, his mind racing with all sorts of scenarios. And yet when Kim Seal arrived, he just stood there dumbly in a corner. He watched her walk in and make herself more at home than if she actually lived there. A note was still on the table from his older sister, saying she had to work the night shift. After reading it, he didn't know what kind of expression to make. Kim Sewell borrowed some of his sister's clothes and went into the bathroom. A moment later, she came out looking like she was the true owner of the house. After asking a few questions and finding out Orion's sister was working at the hospital all night and wouldn't be back, Kim Sewell suddenly got close. A suggestive smile on her face. "Well, then that's convenient. Let's continue, shall we?" Seeing her looking like she was about to pounce on him, our straight-laced hero's hair stood on end. But who would have thought she just poked him lightly in the chest and said, "Summon the system." Turns out she really meant business. And here he was thinking they were about to have a steamy bed scene. Leorium slapped himself a few times to snap out of it, realizing he was getting way ahead of himself. Just then his system displayed a notification. Player Kim Quell has sent a party request to player Leorium. The young man let out a sigh of relief and reached out to press the accept button, but Kim Quell quickly stopped him. "Leorium, let me tell you a few things before you accept. I'll give you all the information I have once we're teammates. Of course, I'll also do my best to protect and support you. Everything I have will also be yours, sir." At this, her expression suddenly hardened as she looked Leorium dead in the eye with extreme seriousness. "If you run away or betray me, I'll grind you into a smoothie." The main character broke out in a cold sweat. He never expected a cute girl could be so terrifying. After saying her piece, Quell turned and walked away. She told him he should take the whole night to think it over carefully, but she hadn't even taken 5 steps before she heard a notification. "You have accepted the party request." The girl was furious. She spun around ready to chew that, block it out. But Leorium explained very simply, "What do I have left to lose? I'm about to get a game over anyway. By joining your party, at least I have a better chance of survival." Kim Quell was a little surprised, but since it made sense, she let it go. Moving on to the main topic, she expertly opened a folder in front of Leorium, explaining that the next thing they needed to do was participate in a large-scale event called Horizon. And they wouldn't just participate, they had to secure first place. In another corner of the game, the bully Beckenhung was currently brawling with a group of newbies. Just when the battle was getting tight and his group thought they were done for, Beckenhung suddenly flew into a rage at the thought of Leorium beating his lackey to a pulp. He unleashed his fury on the monsters in the game, and in the blink of an eye, he sent them all to Kingdom Come. Thanks to that, he also leveled up from Archer to Executioner, constantly muttering, "Lowers have to gravel on the ground. Don't they, Leorium?" As for Kim Quell, she explained that she wanted to join the event because the prize was incredibly appealing. 20 billion won to a rich young lady was like loose change. The important part was the prize that came with it, a single wish that would be granted to the winner. Hold on a second. Blockhead Leorium's brain finally kicked into gear. The money made sense, but a wish that sounded like some kind of BS. Kim Quell nodded in agreement, but thinking back on all their experiences since the game began, it seemed that in this world, logic had gone out the window. There was no other way other than to try it and see for themselves. According to Kim Soo, she had been stuck in this endless loop long before Leorium. Since the winter of her third year of high school, she had already participated in monster hunts 17 times. She had died and been revived 5 times. Kim Soo had also tried contacting the game's headquarters many times. But as a result, the people there all thought she was a psycho who had escaped from an asylum. Even her own parents at home didn't even care about the changes in their daughter, despite the fact that the chosen ones undergo certain physical transformations. For Kim Quell, it was her hair color, while Leorium got a smoking 8-pack body. They hadn't been having their heart-to-heart for long when a loud noise erupted outside. Both of them instinctively glanced in that direction. Their bodies tensed as if something big was about to happen. What was that? Don't tell me, it's a PK player. Compared to Leorium, Kim Quell was much calmer. She began casting a spell as she answered cautiously. I think it was just a normal sound, but just to be safe, I'll use a skill to check. True to her word, the girl waved her hand, creating an invisible watchtower. Leorium asked, still worried, "If you use a skill like that, is there a chance we'll be detected?" Kim Soo replied in a low voice. "They won't find it unless they're deliberately scanning for it. In fact, this will help me watch out for those guys." Her tone was as firm as steel. The young man didn't know how to argue with that. Kim Soo, who was still staring at him, suddenly frowned her annoyance clear on her face and then yelled, "Hey, Leorium, take off your shirt now." After all these years, he still doesn't dare to hold a girl's hand. The young man's face went pale after hearing her demand. Well, this kind of scene shows up in movies a lot, but Kim Soo calmly explained, "I just want to treat your wounds." After a spirited struggle, Leorium finally surrendered at her feet. He was a bit embarrassed, his face ashen, and he didn't dare to move a muscle. But his mouth still had to run off on its own. "But seriously, why do you want to party up with me? You've mastered so many high-level skills while I'm nothing but dead weight. I can't do a damn thing to help. Is it possible that instead of giving me luck with ladies, fate decided to let me latch on to a genuinely powerful sugar mommy instead?" Kim Soo wasn't too happy to hear that. "Well, yeah, it's because you're an idiot that you're easy to boss around. Sorry." "Okay." Seeing Leorium's bewildered expression, she didn't say anything more harsh. "I'm just kidding. Initially, I was only planning to scout out what class you were, but then I suddenly discovered a very interesting fact. It turns out that the goddess Kim Quell herself had once been just a mercenary in an incredibly difficult game event with only a 0.5% clear rate. Kim Swell had once seen Leorium fighting on his pro-level account. That encounter left a lasting impression on her, making her determined to capture that stubborn king for herself. He was anxious all day, and it followed him into his dreams that night. Leorium had a rather restless dream. He found himself lost in an endless corridor with the added bonus of a monster that looked just like that PK player from yesterday. He finally managed to run to an emergency exit only to find the person who had bullied him his whole life on the other side, slowly turning around with a distorted face. Leorium shot up in terror. He was so scared his balls were clacking together. Realizing it was just a dream, he let out a sigh of relief, only to be startled by a voice beside him. "What are you screaming about in the middle of the night, having a nightmare?" Leorium saw Kim Quell lying right next to him and immediately started freaking out. "What the hell, aren't you supposed to be sleeping in my sister's room?" "Kim Kung Yal Nidveridi. I can't sleep in a stranger's bed." This girl sure knows how to seize an opportunity. So sleeping on the bed is a no-go, but rolling around on the floor with a young guy is perfectly fine. Is that it? Then again, Leorium was a young man himself. How could he possibly withstand the sight of those rolling hills before him? The next morning, as soon as the sun peeked out, the two of them headed off to class, acting as if nothing had happened. Kim Si-well hastily sipped her milk carton, while carefully warning Orium about many things like how he had to be mentally prepared to face challenges from now on, and how he had to be careful not to lose credibility points, and especially not to be like last time recklessly using his skills whenever he felt like it. Orium, chewing on his bread, nodded along, trying to remember all these unwritten rules. Kim Kung-zal, knowing expression, always left Leorium in absolute awe. But contrary to that image, her attitude was always about 30% serious and 70% silly. As soon as she was asked what she planned to do if she got the wish reward in the upcoming event, she immediately threw up a smokescreen. Of course, I'd build a paradise full of handsome men. What else? The two of them laughed and talked, completely unaware that they had fallen into the sights of a few pairs of eyes from afar inside a car parked on the roadside. At that moment, a pair of players looked at the uniforms Leorium and Kim Kung were wearing and immediately guessed they were just students. The man behind the wheel had a look of utter contempt, but he was cut off by the white-haired woman. She argued that eliminating both of them now wouldn't bring any benefits, especially since one of those two kids had a job class that their team didn't have, so they'd have to consider recruiting them instead. Who cares about age? If their skills are good, we can use them. Another boring day came to an end. After school, as Leorium was walking and pondering his next move, he was ambushed by two guys. Strangers jumped out to block his path. One of them had his face covered in bandages, trying to look cool, and the other was in a gray shirt with blonde hair and a black mask. One look at their outfits, and you could tell they weren't just young troublemakers, but full-on street thugs. Before Liam could even react, they both lunged at him, held a knife to him, and dragged him off to an abandoned warehouse where their buddies were waiting. The guys posted there didn't look any better. As soon as they saw Orium, the whole gang wanted to jump in for a piece of the action. In moments like these with his special main character aura talent, Lorium should have shouted, "Yeah," or "transform," and then rushed in to punch each of them in the mouth as is proper. But remembering Kim Kung and LT, Unk and GT's warning, Orium told himself he had to fight them one-on-one to avoid losing points. Having skills and not being able to use them is so damn frustrating. Filled with frustration, he rushed forward, vowing to show no mercy. Just like that, one after another, the thugs dropped like autumn leaves. Orium merely warmed up his wrists and made each of them spill a few letters of fresh syrup. If there are no other problems, I can handle all of them. These guys are decent fighters, but at the end of the day, they're still human. This is as strong as they get. The guy in the red shirt watched his underlings get their jaws knocked sideways one by one, and he was seeing red. Who the hell started the rumor that this Leorium kid was an easy target? They must be blind. He clearly didn't look that muscular, but every one of his blows was vicious. After observing a bit longer, he suddenly came up with a different strategy. While his underlings were still sacrificing themselves on the front lines, he has stealthily snuck around the back, found a weapon, and seeing an opportunity when Leorium wasn't looking, lunged forward. Unexpectedly, our main character spotted him in time. With a single block, he bent the iron bar. The final blow for him was a critical hit straight to the face. All he could do was lie at Leorium's feet, wailing and playing the victim. After beating them up for a while longer until none of them had any strength left, Leorium finally picked up his bag and left. On the way home, he suddenly ran into his older sister who was just coming from the supermarket. Seeing Orium with his clothes all disheveled and covered in sweat, his sister was horrified and demanded to know what on earth had happened. Only then did Leori realize how much of a mess he looked. Afraid his sister would realize something was wrong, he scratched his head and replied, "Oh, it's nothing. A few close friends just invited me to play soccer. That's all." The truth was he wasn't exhausted from dealing with that bunch of punks. It was because he was afraid his sister would see him, so he tried to run home as fast as possible. To distract his sister, the quick-witted young man rushed over to help her carry her things. He was also incredibly excited to learn they were having grilled meat for dinner. Looking at that expression on Leorium's face, his sister could only give a wry smile. His face may have changed, but his personality, like that of a 3-year-old, was still unmistakable. Finally, his sister cheerfully concluded, "No matter how much you grow up, you'll always be my little brother. Oh, right, you brought a girl home last night, didn't you?" Hearing this, the young man nearly evaporated on the spot. He couldn't believe that just a few strands of Kim Kung's brown hair hadn't escaped his sister's sharp eyes when she was in her Detective Conan mode. Women are truly dangerous creatures. Knowing he couldn't argue his way out of this, even with 10 mouths, Orium just shyly nodded and promised to introduce that friend to his sister soon. As for the thugs, after a round of combat with Orium, every single one of them had aching backs, tired knees, and numb hands. The guy in the red shirt was especially bitter and immediately picked up the phone to snitch to his ally, who was none other than Baekhyun, the ringleader of the bullies. The next day, as usual, as soon as class ended, Kim Soo called out to Leorium. The girl at the next desk, seeing how close the two of them were, wanted to walk home with them. But Kim Soo gently declined. We're not going out to have fun. Wait until we're done with our business, and I'll explain it to you later. Okay. This very ambiguous answer successfully made the entire class stare blankly. Everyone was surprised because, after all, Kim Kung was considered a goddess. Seeing her side by side with Leorium was like a beautiful flower planted on a pile of cow dung. There were even rumors that these two were openly dating behind the principal's back. And sure enough, this was exactly what Kim Quell was thinking after dragging Leorium to a deserted corner. She directly proposed, "Don't you think we should just start dating?" Hearing this, the young man lost his composure completely, even spraying out the mouthful of milk he hadn't swallowed yet. According to Kim Kung's explanation, this was so that people around them wouldn't pay too much attention. Their relationship had to be like this to make sense. It was the first time straight-laced Leorium had a girl confess to him so directly, and he nearly had a stroke. Luckily, he managed to hold on to a shred of decency, and solemnly replied, "Let me think about it." Kamiwell snickered. The next second, upon hearing an announcement, she regained her serious, old, ladylike demeanor. Tonight, the system arranged for them to participate in a duo mission. Leorium was hesitant at first, but he saw it as an opportunity to learn more about how Kamai fights. Besides, the reward was great, so he quickly nodded in agreement. When the time came, the two of them quickly found the tallest building in the area and climbed to the rooftop. They observed their surroundings. Seeing the worry written all over his teammate's face, Kim Sewell pressed him for an answer. She learned he was trying to find something called a black gate. What's that? You really don't know. Isn't that where all the monsters come from? At this, Leorium suddenly felt that something was off. His knowledge of this game was far too limited. It seemed he couldn't afford to be careless. Just then, a notification screen popped up reminding them they only had 1 minute left before the mission started. Leorium tried to suppress his usual panic and saw that Kim Sewell had already started opening her inventory and sending items to him. Of course, it came with an explanation that the items were very expensive and that tomorrow she wanted to be paid back with bread and strawberry milk. The countdown timer then let out a loud beep. A giant shadow swept over their heads at the speed of light. This time they had to face a wolf monster famous for its incredibly fast movements. This species was rumored to be quite docile and it wouldn't bite without reason if not attacked. But its speed was its most formidable trait, making this mission much more difficult. Leorium tried to squint and observe it. He suddenly exclaimed, "All right, let's set a trap." This strategy required one person to dig a trap and another to act as bait to lure the dog in. Kim Sewell initially disagreed, but she suddenly realized she was sort of at the guy's mercy now. He was incredibly confident. Without another word, he grabbed his sword and shot off after the wolf like an arrow. It should also be mentioned that this monster was the type with all brawn and no brains. It was only fast. Overall, it wasn't too tough to take down. Just as Leorium thought things were going smoothly, a figure flashed past him from behind and changed everything. It turned out that besides their party, there were other players participating in this mission. The girl who just zipped past Leorium was using incredible speed. It seemed she wanted to steal the kill. She quickly closed in, drew her sword, and landed 2 slashes, leaving the monster deeply traumatized. On top of that, her teammate was right ahead. He expertly jumped out to block its path, preparing to land the final blow and finish things for the night. But just at that moment, Leorium, unwilling to accept this, jumped into the combat with his sword. His appearance immediately turned the tables. While the other group was still stunned, the young man had already managed to land a slash on the monster's head. Unfortunately, it wasn't strong enough and only dealt physical damage like a surface scratch. The other players, standing aside, now flew into a rage. They argued that even though it was a shared mission, jumping in to steal a kill like that was not okay. The girl in the pink shirt had a particularly fierce reaction, constantly scolding our main character as if he were a misbehaved child. Leorium gave her a look that was 3 parts pity and 7 parts patronizing. "It seems I really did bother you all, but I'm sorry. Next time, I'll be more considerate." As soon as he finished speaking, he didn't even spare them another glance and quickly dashed away. The girl in pink was so mad she could burst. Meanwhile, her male teammate was calmer. "He's right. This is a competition. As long as we kill the monster, tripping up our opponent is also a valid method." With that, he flashed a strange smile and cast a spell towards Leorium. The young man mid-flight nearly smashed his head into the barrier he had just created to stop him. "Oh, you've got to be kidding me. Talk about the pot calling the kettle black." In the end, everyone's playing just as dirty as each other. This barrier could only be effective from the outside, but unfortunately for that guy, he didn't know that I'm basically the author's favorite. In a flash, I found the right skill to break out of the cocoon. But right after a bigger surprise awaited, Leorium quickly caught up with the other party. He found them in a complete panic. It turned out this monster wasn't so easy to beat after all. Besides its godlike speed, it now had an upgraded instant teleportation ability, something that wasn't even in the game. The first victim was the young man from the other team. Each bite into his flesh made him unable to stop screaming in pain. The girl in pink saw her teammate being mauled and saw Red quickly charging forward. But in the blink of an eye, the monster was gone. This incredibly tense situation was beyond Leorium's predictions. Fearing that the mutt would wreak more havoc, Leorium rushed out to personally block it, while the girl in pink was unable to defend herself. I thought I was about to meet my maker. I never expected to be saved like this. The girl was a bit bewildered. What? Why did you save me? Didn't I say I'd be more considerate next time? Leorium gave it his all and finally managed to temporarily push the monster back. At the same time, a message from Kim Sewell arrived reminding him that she had finished setting the trap. Seizing the opportunity, he offered a deal. To the other team, I will give you this potion. In return, you'll support me. Is that a deal? The girl in pink gritted her teeth, her expression sour. This cheap thing, can't we just buy it with a little money? Why the hell should we agree to be your lackey? Who knew that before she could even finish her sentence, instant karma would strike? Her teammate to the side started coughing up blood, looking like he was about to kick the bucket. Well, I guess a little help in a desperate time is worth more than a feast when you're full. At this point, all they could do was pray to their ancestors that they'd make it out alive. They were lucky enough to be alive. How could they even dream of a reward? After the plan was settled, following Leorium's instructions, the short pink shirt girl hid on the roof, preparing to act as a decoy. Instead of attacking relentlessly like before, now all she had to do was toy with it for a few rounds. She would lure it to a street corner where her other teammate was already lying in wait. The next step was to create a cage, preparing to lead the chicken to the chopping block. The guy who got bitten by the monster earlier was determined to get his revenge. He used all his strength to block every escape route. Seizing this opportunity, Leorium bravely moved forward. Obviously, the hunt wouldn't end that simply, but to achieve the best result, he had no choice but to take the risk. This monster's weakness was that despite its high speed, it took a while to regenerate health. To put it simply, if you could withstand 2 of its consecutive instant teleports, then you could easily take it down. You got to admit, when faced with the main character's plot armor, even a wolf turns into a house dog. Oh well, the first time it teleported, it wasn't suspicious at all. But the second time, after observing carefully and seeing Leorium standing still as a statue, the wolf risked its life and pounced. This time, it finally achieved something. A few fang marks appeared on Leorium. Unfortunately for the wolf, this was exactly what he had been waiting for. He endured the pain and immediately unleashed a direct attack skill. The monster was hit, roared in pain, and turned to flee. Just as Leorium planned, what awaited it over there was the hell that Kim Quell had created. While the whole group was busy beating each other up over here, she'd been standing there for ages. At this point, all they had to do was wait for the fish to take the bait. But unexpectedly, halfway through, the pink shirt girl went rogue, chasing after the monster, wanting to finish it off herself to get some rewards. Leorium suddenly realized he couldn't get through to these brain-dead-ad idiots anymore. He let out a long sigh, took out all the resources Kim Quell had given him before the battle, and after using one, it was like a flashbang went off. He quickly put his life on the line and sprinted past the girl. I feel bad for her, but whatever. After all, it's better to proactively fight for the prize than to get yelled at by a girl. I may lose when it comes to love, but when it comes to a race, I'll take home all the trophies. As expected, at the end of the road, the monster was caught in the trap. Kim Quell calmly used her scepter from above, creating countless invisible chains that restrained it. Now, that's a teammate someone actually worth their salt. With Kim Quell's support, Leorium's blade successfully landed a fatal blow on the monster's weak spot. The beast was officially done for. After everything was over, Kim Quell flew down to stand beside Leorium. She wanted to ask why. He had a speed-boosting item prepared like that. Did he somehow know what was going to happen? To her surprise, Leorium's answer was straight to the point. I'm not that great or a deep thinker. I just thought that if I was in danger, the only thing I could do is run to you as fast as I can. Hearing this, Kimwell was completely moved. It turns out this blockhead can say such sweet things sometimes. To break the tense atmosphere, she didn't hesitate to praise Leorium. Just then, the system notification appeared for brilliantly completing the mission. The both of them were given a very generous reward. The ranking board was even more insane. Their party was naturally in first place, but the number of parties participating in this mission was 3. Leorium was startled and muttered, "What? Besides those two from before, there was another team. It turned out that because the other party had actively hidden themselves, Leorium and Kim Quell couldn't detect them. From another tall building, two young men had been casually watching the fight from the very beginning. They were the third party. But ever since they realized Leorium and Kim Quell were two players with extremely high potential, they decided not to participate and just quietly sat back and watched. They used their sharp eyes to judge their every move. As usual, after the mission ended, the winner would get to choose a personal reward. Leorium glanced over, wanted to see if Kim Quell would choose the points. Unexpectedly, this time, she wanted cash to fill her purse. You guessed wrong. I'm saving up to buy a time transformer. This thing doesn't just reverse time. It's also very useful when facing a formidable opponent. In other words, having this is like having an extra life in this game. That's right. Kim Quell was always so calculating. He had almost forgotten. Even though they were playing a game, they were playing it in the real world. One small mistake, and you could still be toast. The team on the other side, after being thoroughly defeated, really wanted to get acquainted with Leorium. Seeing Kim Quell's surprise, the young man took the opportunity to introduce them. These guys wanted to leech it first, but they ended up providing a little support later on. I guess that redeems them. Model. The guy over there looked like he was about to jump up and scream, but the girl in pink was quick on the uptake and turned to roast him. Oh, so this is the character that you said you'd protect with your life? Huh? Really? Friends like these are just waiting for a chance to stab you in the back. So, do we have a deal on this alliance or what? To smooth things over for the girl in pink, the guy in black quickly jumped into the conversation. You're really good. Let's add each other as friends. Okay. Leorium was a bit stunned to hear this. He still had to turn to his better half and get a nod of approval before he dared to agree. The group over there also made their attitude clear. They just saw this as an extreme sport. They had absolutely no ill intentions. However, as soon as he opened the screen to add them as friends, the notification screen suddenly flashed a familiar ominous red. Another player has illegally invaded. It's happening again. In less than a few seconds, the group saw a figure dash towards them from a distance. He wore a demon mask, had ferocious eyes, and was carrying a heavy weapon. He was clearly a PK-type player. The guy in black quickly created a protective barrier and then yelled at Orium, "Hurry up and finish choosing your personal reward. If you don't, we're all going to die." Before he could finish his sentence, a fatal blow pierced through the barrier, skewering him like a shish kebab. The girl in pink flew into a rage, leaped behind him, and began slashing frantically. But it was clear that neither of them was a match for that guy. Luckily, Kim Saiwal's wolf trap was still active. He accidentally stepped on it and was instantly frozen solid in place. Just at that moment, Leorium lunged forward with his sword and successfully relieved him of an arm. But the trap couldn't hold him for long. In a flash, he broke free and ran away. Leorium looked at the players lying bloodied all over the ground and quickly instructed Kim Seal, "You stay here and heal them. I'll be back in a bit." The moment she heard this, Kim Seul's face went pale as a sheet. Of course, she 1000% disagreed, but it was always the same. Leorium's attitude was always so resolute that no one could stop him. So after a dramatic, tearful goodbye, she could only obediently listen. Leorium mounted his his sword, and shot off into the distance. When he reached a fork in the road, he suddenly saw the masked man sitting there comfortably as if he'd been waiting for him all afternoon. Crap, it's a trap. He wanted to lure him out alone for an easy one-on-one. To be honest, I don't want to get rough, but for a piece of scum like you, this is still too light. I'll give you two choices. 1. Run away within 10 seconds, you dog. 2. Stay here and suffer my wrath. After hearing this, the masked man gave a contemptuous smirk. You were pretty damn decisive when you made me one-armed, weren't you? You're scared now, you idiot. Leorium thought that smirk looked familiar. It definitely rang a bell. Sure enough, the man pulled something out of his pocket that he never expected. The time changer. Kim C had just been advertising how incredibly overpowered this thing was, and he never thought he'd see it in action so soon. In a flash, the masked man's arm grew back as if it had never been gone. So that's how it is. This guy wasn't some brainless warrior at the very least. With his arm back, he was twice as strong. Every move he made carried immense killing intent. Leorium didn't dare to underestimate him carefully, dodging each blow. He observed him closely. This guy wasn't just reckless. He was also very fast. Messing with guys like this, one wrong move and you'll be toast. At first, the young man struggled to parry each blow. A moment later, he realized the situation wasn't looking too good. His defenses were actually getting pierced. It wasn't until he coughed up a mouthful of blood that he realized he's using insanely strong buff items. That has to be it. Things seem to be getting out of control. This masked man was clearly a high-level player, as if he'd become the lord of PvP, be the king of carrying the game. Leorium was trapped by him in a one-on-one arena, so no one could help him. I can only rely on myself. A bold idea suddenly popped into Orium's head this time. Charging forward, he tried to close the distance with him. The masked man was delighted to see this. This idiot. How can you even survive with that pile of garbage skills? If you want to wipe out my whole team, you'll have to speed it up. His words were grating. Orium was like a moth drawn to a flame. Ignoring the masked man who was closing in, his spear thrust towards his head, firing continuously, but unfortunately he missed. He saw Orium dodge to the side. He yelled in a deranged voice, "What's this, little buddy? Can't win, so you're running away. I'm done playing with you. Let's end this." This time, he impatiently channeled all his damage into his weapon and unleashed a massive amount of heat, creating a terrifyingly huge crater in the ground. He thought it was all over. Unexpectedly, after the dust settled, he saw Orium's figure standing there unfazed, his sword gripped tightly in his hand. It turned out this young man had successfully used the copy skill. He stood still and took the hit, not to die, but to absorb all of his damage. The masked man was stunned, only managing to think, "Oh crap, I'm so screwed." As expected, in the blink of an eye, he saw Leorium raise his sword and swing it back at him. The masked man still refused to give up. He mustered his last bit of strength and quickly attacked. Both of them coughed up blood at the same time, but the look on Orium's face was even more terrifying now. 3, 2, 1, what? At this point, he understood. Leorium had just been stalling for time, waiting for his one-on-one arena's time limit to expire, and he wouldn't be bound by it anymore. This time, it was the decisive blow. He was knocked down from above. The blade slashed across his chest, sending blood flying everywhere. After taking a direct hit like this, there was truly no coming back. He lay sprawled on the ground, watching Orium slowly walk towards him. Why? Why are you doing this? This isn't a game anymore. You're trying to actually kill people, aren't you? What do you even get for doing this? An event reward, or just the thrill of watching others suffer? The masked man chuckled. He knew he didn't have a chance, so he became more blunt. I lost everything because of this game. My friends and family don't even recognize me anymore. I want to destroy it all. I will. Before he could finish, he was suddenly impaled by an incredibly sharp scythe. Orion was absolutely horrified when he saw that weapon. Just as expected, another figure emerged from the mist behind him, carrying an immense, bloodthirsty aura. The PK player from before landed, gently beside the corpse. He absorbed his power as if he were sipping coconut water. The world seemed to spin. What the hell is wrong with this world? Leorium screamed. Are you also hunting people because you hate the world? The Grim Reaper pulled his mask up to cover his face and replied coldly, We're different. I don't have any reason. I just want to win. Before Orium could recover, he was pulled into a fight with the Grim Reaper. After just a few basic moves, he realized the man seemed to be twice as strong as last time. Every move he made was blocked, and every attack was quickly broken. Do these guys level up like it's nothing? God, this is so unfair. Orium, completely bewildered, suddenly noticed an incoming attack that seemed a little different. It turned out that the Grim Reaper hadn't come alone this time. He was with his comrades, a girl with a necromancer class, and another young man who looked like he was ready for a massacre. 3 against 1 isn't a fair fight. The author is really making things difficult for him this time. At first, the Grim Reaper was incredibly annoyed that the other two wanted to steal his prey, but I don't know how they negotiated. But a moment later, all 3 of them turned to attack Orium simultaneously. I'm getting a headache just thinking about it. At this rate, losing my account is only a matter of time. Just as Orium was struggling, not knowing what to do, a new element jumped into the fight. The Hello Kitty pajamas and bunny slippers were a stark contrast to the sword. The enormous sword was next to the guy who had been sitting leisurely on the rooftop just a moment ago. He had been watching the 2 kids hunt monsters, and now he had jumped down wanting to play too. It turns out this guy has the Dragon Hunter class, a type that's rare and hard to find. In the entire country, only about 3 people have achieved it. Despite that, his attitude was incredibly friendly, and his initial impression on Orion was also very good. We can chat later. Let me help you clean up these insects first. What followed was the sight of the Grim Reaper faction switching to combat the Dragon Hunter. In reality, to end this match, the prerequisite was still for Orion to finish choosing his reward. The Dragon Hunter, after toying with the others for a while, got bored and quickly turned to urge the young man, What are you still standing there for? Choose a reward and end this quickly. Leorium was initially worried about Kim Swell's group. They were still seriously injured, and he wondered if ending the match would affect them. Unexpectedly, a few seconds later, he saw that she had also run over. It turns out that while the Dragon Hunter was here helping Orium, his remaining teammates had gone to Kim Sywell to heal them. The whole group came over, arriving just in time to jump in and block another attack from the Grim Reaper's side. Finally, Leorium managed to choose his reward. Before everyone logged out, Leorium hurriedly turned and asked, "Who are you guys really? Why did you help us?" The dragon hunter kept a friendly smile on his face. "Oh, I forgot. We're the John Guild. Don't you worry. We'll meet again soon." The next day, according to the information they gathered, the Jason Guild was one of the top 3 guilds in the game, a large-scale guild with 800 members, and it had been popular for a very long time. Normally, the Jason Guild only did raids or in-game battles, but that didn't mean the guild that Leorium met yesterday was the same. The Horizon event is having some problems. They might operate differently than in the game. People go crazy when they're about to lose money. To keep everyone safe, Kim Well reminded Leorium, it's best to keep a distance from them and watch from afar. Just then, Becky Han appeared out of nowhere with a grim, murderous expression, dragging Leorium along with him. Seeing him, Kim Sewell was immediately annoyed and yelled at him not to come and bother people. You have nothing to say to him after everything you all caused. But Leorium signaled for his friend to stop. He ignored her and told the girl to just stay put. I'm not afraid of a single damn person. If anything happens, I'll handle it just fine. So, you don't need to worry. I'll call you when I'm done. Kim Sewell, annoyed, put on a pouting face. Even though she was told not to interfere, she still had to drag herself over to eavesdrop. Baek Hyun-hyung put on his million-dollar face and began to threaten Leorium. Specifically, he said that Sion-won had been seriously injured and taken to the hospital after taking a loving slaps to the face from Leorium. Sion-won had broken some bones, but had now partially recovered. The problem was his parents intended to sue you, so we don't know what the police will do next. But if they continue their investigation, Leorium will be in trouble. In the end, you could be expelled and at worst go to jail. However, there's a solution for everything. It's not like there's no way out. After that long-winded speech, Baek Eun-young offered to persuade the defense attorney at his father's company to get the family of Sion-won to drop the matter, to steer this in the right direction until the verdict, and to make everything go smoothly. To make a long story short for this all to disappear quietly, Leorium needed to go to Sion-won right now and kneel down and apologize to him. That's it. Like hell, I will apologize for what he thought Leorium would cower in fear like always. But no, you're wrong, little bro. I'm a different version now, a better version of the Leorium from yesterday. So, I have nothing to apologize for to anyone. Tell him he can come here and sue me. I have no damn intention of apologizing to Kim Sung-won, not even for a single word. Besides, he didn't just torture me. He even beat up Kim Swell, the person who was helping me. I can overlook everything else, but not this. I can take the fall myself, but I won't forgive anyone who harms others because of me. So, tell him if he wants to sue me, then go ahead and sue. I don't care what happens. I'm not going back. After saying everything he needed to Becky Hyun-hyung, the kid let out a sigh of relief, slung his bag over his shoulder, and walked away. But the tree wants to be still, and the wind will not stop. That guy still wouldn't give up. He threatened Leorium with his older sister, saying if the police got involved, she would find out he used to be bullied. Even though they were orphans, she always wanted her younger brother to have a decent life. But it turned out he was an outcast. When faced with this painful truth, even a strong person would completely break down. Leorium furiously grabbed his collar and demanded to know why he knew everything about his family situation, but did nothing until now. Why did he just stand there and watch? He could have stopped anyone from bullying him. In the end, he was just like the rest of them. After all, they had been friends since they were kids, running around naked in the rain. What kind of friends were they? Friend, my ass. All they do is stab each other in the back. Beck and Hung laughed devilishly and replied, I never once considered you a friend. Think about it. How could someone like you ever be my friend? I have so much, but you don't even have parents. We're on completely different levels. Don't get the wrong idea. I only hung out with you for a bit because I was so bored. Oh, right. Kim Swell probably thinks the same way because she also has everything and was born with a silver spoon in her mouth. Leorium was in agony. He collapsed. Beck and Hung's words had just dealt a painful stab to his heart. What could be worse than being betrayed by your best friend? The feeling was Leorium's eyes changed to an unusual color. He swung his fist and punched Beck and Hyong a few times, giving him a thorough beating and directly severing this damn relationship. Before leaving, Leorium left a few parting words for his so-called best friend. I will get my revenge, no matter the cost. The day will come when I'll be the one looking down on you from a higher level. As he was walking back, lost in a mess of chaotic thoughts, Kim Sewell suddenly popped out of nowhere. She pointed her hand at the back of his neck and pretended to shoot, going bang-bang, which scared the life out of him. He thought some crazy lady was attacking him. She curiously asked about his relationship with Beck and Hyung, admitting that she was worried and had been following him and ended up witnessing some pretty unpleasant scenes. Leorium explained that when they were younger, they went to the same middle and high school. In middle school, they hung out almost every day after class and became the closest of friends. But things changed in high school. After Beck and Hyung started making popular friends, a rift slowly formed. At first, he would bring Leorium along to hang out with them, and eventually it led to this. Kim Sol felt sympathetic and comforted him, telling him not to overthink things. She shyly fiddled with her hair and then invited Leorium. "If you're not busy tonight, why don't you come over to my place for some ramen?" Being asked out by a girl for the first time, Leorium completely froze. In disbelief, he yelled, "I can't keep up with this conversation." To cover her embarrassment, Kim Swell used the excuse.